My middle name's Josh.
Oh,
Actually, it's got a UA at the end. Yeshua. Joshua.
Joshua Parker.
How cool is that? Yeshua. Really? The only name in Hebrew that matches Jesus.
Is Yeshua?
Well, English to Hebrew.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting because after Moses, God appoints Joshua to bring the Israelites to the promised land, which I think is interesting. Anyway, we can talk about that. We can talk about that later. Yeah, that's true. Be strong and courageous.
Did you record that? Because this is cool. Good. I like a good rolling start. So we're in it, dude. We're in it. And for those of you who are joining us, we're glad you're here. I'm really stoked because I got one of my good friends, and we haven't caught up in a while. So I'm afraid there's so much to talk about. You're like Ricky. I got Ricky Bobby
I don't know
over
what to
here.
do with my hands here. I don't know why this logo
Luke
is
Parker
right
is
here.
presented by First Form, as you can see, but almost head to toe. And we'll talk about that competition because I want to hear it. But we got Luke Joshua Parker. We're just unpacking the last name in the house, dude. And I guess I have a I do it all the time where I kind of bury the lead. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I want to say is congratulations on your second qualification to the CrossFit Games.
Wait, what?
You're getting there, right?
I'm so confused right now.
Congratulations on a fantastic performance this season so far. Is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
I was like, wait a second. Did I qualify for the games?
Sorry.
And get a backfill
For
and
the
not know
semifinals.
I was like,
For this,
I was like, whoa.
That was a massive
Holy moly.
faux pas.
I was like,
Congratulations on your individual
Hey,
qualification for semis.
if you're telling me congratulations because of the 6 workouts that got released, then thank you, because those did fire me up.
Did they really?
Oh, man. I talked to my coach about it and Angelo a little bit, and, like, I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah.
I feel like Dave Castro took the reins. It's old school CrossFit.
Yeah.
There's no circus tricks.
Yeah.
Pretty good volume.
Yeah.
Mayhem athlete. Thank you, Rich.
Here's the deal. And I have to defend my boy Boz a little bit. I think it's still a
Yeah.
committee, right? It's still a committee. But to your point.
All right, that looks like I'm attacking Boss, for sure.
And because here's the other thing is last year, you said the same thing. A lot of those workouts lined up well, right?
Yeah.
And so I think part of this conversation, which I love to get into, is maybe it's just you're starting to realize that a lot of things line up well for you because your fitness has come a long way.
Well said. Well said.
You know?
I did. Yeah, I talked to my wife about that. I think last year was like, the more I look at workouts, I'm like, man, that's good for me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good for me. Well, what's bad for me?
Yeah. What are the lines? What are the
starting to close? You know, like
yeah.
not a whole lot.
What are those still? Just so
a
we're
good feeling.
outliers.
People listening, I think.
Well, here's the funny thing, though.
Nothing.
Right?
No, I'm joking. And it's the same thing. I'm a bigger guy.
Yeah.
We're honestly, you and I are very similar.
Yep.
So my wingspan, right, is like 6'2.5", 6'3". So I'm a gorilla because I'm only like 5'11.5". I say I'm 6 foot, you know.
Yep.
But yeah. So anything that's strict pressing, high volume, whether it's mainly upside down like handstand push-ups type thing.
Yep.
Which is interesting because there's 0 of those at semifinals. Although I've been working very hard to see them in a lot of them.
Yep.
But yeah, just high volume pressing gymnastics, which it's not a weakness anymore. It's just
it's
not my wheelhouse.
It's your least strong.
Yeah, it's not my wheelhouse.
And what's funny about your 5'11" is that you present so much bigger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've never had anybody who came into the gym like on when I tour people around and like, hey, show them the facility. Mm-hmm. When they see you working out without your shirt on, people are like, oh my, is he 230 pounds? Like you look huge.
That's the running joke, I think, with Rich and I is because he's like, let me back up. To your point, he even tells me, man, you look like you're 220, 230. He's like, how am I only 5 pounds lighter than you?
Right.
Do you have hollow bones? So he and Angelo call me bird bones sometimes. They mess with me. I think it's hilarious because it's true. I mean, like sometimes I'll pop a top and I'm like beefy looking after a pump. And it's just like, how am I only 5 pounds heavier than some of these other athletes?
Yeah.
But it is cool because obviously Rich is one of those guys. It's like every bit of 190, 195. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the more I do this, honestly, the smaller I want to be.
Isn't that funny?
Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not chasing aesthetic. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be fast and move fast,
Yeah.
which is interesting because more weight slows you down. But it does pay to be strong though,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Well, and It's funny, dude. In the back of my head, I've got so many things. I'm like, oh, I want to follow a list, but like really we should follow the conversation. And so having said that, like, let's talk athletic background, because I think a lot of people probably don't know as much about you in that sense.
Absolutely.
And so everybody comes to this sport with some sort of, like, some people were gymnasts, some people were, endurance athletes, some people were strength athletes. Break down kind of where yours came from, because you were fairly competitive in team sports.
Absolutely. Compared to CrossFit athletes, honestly, I'd say I'm a bit of a hybrid, because I played all sports growing up, which is interesting because even something like playing college baseball for 4 years, which was my sport that I ended up focusing on, when I got to high school, I had to pick what I thought was one, but I ended up playing football and baseball, which now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have done Olympic lifting, gymnastics, wrestling. Anyway, that's another story. So I focused on baseball and football, and then baseball for 4 years in college. And I guess I didn't realize how much of like an aerobic base I had built just from having some crazy coaches who were like, hey, you're going to run 50 poles. You guys lost tonight. You know what I mean? And the conditioning, and then some, like even my freshman, sophomore year in college, we had a CrossFit every Wednesday morning.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was like 5 a.m. We would get at like sleds out of the shed and like these big tires and like sledgehammers. But it wasn't like, it was like a bunch of different intervals. Yeah. And you'd have a partner, and sometimes we'd race each other, but it was pretty gnarly. Like,
it's CrossFit-ish, but you're mixing modalities, which a lot of young athletes didn't do until a couple of years ago. I'm like, I look at, like, even hearing you say that, or I look at Angelo, and then I look at my kids, and I'm like, I'm so jealous that this kind of, I want to call it, it's a new technology, really, like it wasn't around when I was training as a kid.
Totally.
And they get their hands on it so much earlier. So it's cool to hear that they were incorporating that.
Totally. But I'll say this, because it wasn't just like baseball workouts. Like my brother and my dad have it had a huge influence on me as well. My brother was like my role model,
and he's a legit monster.
Yeah, he was
size-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was like 6'4", 220, 230, like lean and shredded.
Yep.
Tall, lefty, power hitting first baseman who's hitting absolute dingers, like bombs. Anyway, through college baseball, I'm always looking up to him, even when he played a year of pro ball before he hung it up. And he and I would do like sport-specific training, extra outside of like whatever I had to do with like my school and stuff. And then we also kind of like dipped our toe in bodybuilding because we didn't know any better.
Sure.
And we thought it would help us hit balls farther.
How far apart are you guys?
He's 2.5 years older than me.
Okay.
So that was kind of a background, was like bodybuilding, but also like I was the dude, like let's say our baseball team was going to go to the gym. Like I was kind of like the ringleader that was like, hey, I'm going to lead the troops to battle. I didn't like vocally say that. I just was just hooting and hollering and like getting the boys going. You know what I mean? Getting the juices flowing in the locker room and everything. Ripping dry scoops and all the sorts. And
that's been a lifelong pursuit. I thought that was new.
No, it was like the last few years of college. Yeah. Anyway, that was kind of my background, and then hanging up my cleats and like graduating college and school and all that. There's actually a big chunk of time. I want to say 6-month period where I did nothing.
Well, and hold on before we get there.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of like benchmark that. So what were like your lifts? Were you
out of baseball?
Yeah. Nothing outrageous?
What's crazy is like the things I'm not very good at right now compared to what I am good at is like what was outrageous. Like my bench. There was a point in time where I could bench 350.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd be surprised if I could hit like 315 right now for one, because I do all dumbbell stuff.
Right.
I'm trying to be upside down. You know
what I mean? I guess you could hit 350.
I'm doing Olympic lifting. You know what I mean? Honestly, I haven't benched a max in a long time.
Right.
Because we don't really do that in CrossFit. I could squat the house, but it was weird. Like I got real wide with my feet. I got the bar real low on my back, and like some people might be questioning if I'm parallel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I didn't know any better. I wasn't like as they say, like
you were playing a different
grass.
You had different goals,
Olympic
right?
Lifting.
But the reason I love the benchmark is because always, right? People would be like, well, how did this guy get so good so quick? And they forget like you had an entire life before, right?
For sure.
And you sound like you were a lot more well-rounded. Like I was pure strength. So when I came to CrossFit, I could squat the world. Like, I was squatting like 420 pounds in high school.
Yeah.
And then I got to CrossFit and it was like a pull-up? What are you talking about, dude? Like pull myself over the bar? No way.
Yeah. I guess that's cool. I'll add this detail, and I'm not trying to like make a baseball flex here, but like if you looked at me, I was for sure like the strongest guy on my baseball teams, but I also was like the fastest. Like my claim to fame in junior college wasn't hitting home runs. I had the stolen base record.
You could run, yeah. Oh,
which is pretty cool. I can't remember how many it was like 40 something, my sophomore season. But like it was speed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'd hawk down balls in the outfield, try to rob home runs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I was fast.
Yeah.
And I was like athletic. So that was for sure like my God-given talent there was like athleticism and like speed.
Yep.
And then I just, like you said, that works well in the CrossFit space when you pair that with strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Because your sprinter's right here in the middle. So you're going to add this side and
for sure.
Little by little round yourself out. So, okay. And also, sorry, the bodybuilding thing too. I think a lot of folks, when they see like this amazing physique and they're like, CrossFit doesn't make that physique. This guy's, whatever.
Yeah.
Hurl accusations at you. And it's like, yeah, but I spent a lot of time bodybuilding. And so my physique, CrossFit helps express whatever you came into it with. And I think that it enhances it in a lot of senses.
For sure.
It's like, yeah, dude, I spent a lot of time bodybuilding. Like
100%.
And
I do dedicate a lot of my shape to bodybuilding, but also like, I mean, it's like anything, right? Like there's a genetic pull too.
Yes.
Like my mom and my dad had, they were great. I guess you could just say they had for sure like work ethic, but great physiques and like they were specimens themselves.
Something natural to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also like you pair that, like you said, with CrossFit and the high intensities and the high volume and everything. It just starts to multiply.
Brings out the best.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So then we get to this point, you take a break, so to speak, not doing much. You said there was a period where you didn't do much.
Yep. 6 months. And then trying to think what I did right after that was, okay, so my brother had his first child, Kennedy Price Parker. Anyway, that was my first niece that came into the world. Right now he just has two little girls. But yeah, to that period of time, I had just finished college, was working for my brother, and he had gained a little bit of weight because he had hung up playing professional for a little bit and then was like focusing on life and business and like, hey, I'm having my first child. Like I need to get, finances and like real world stuff lined up. And then he, like I said, kind of let himself go from just like the healthy, focused, healthy eating lifestyle and doing fitness all the time. So he was like, hey man, let's sign up for a half Ironman 8 months out. And I didn't even know what a half Ironman was when he said it.
Right.
But of course my mentality, I was like, let's go, bro. You know what I mean? Like,
Still
I don't care what it is,
yeah.
but I'm with you. You know what I mean? And then I started like doing some research and I'm like, okay, like, we got to start the training.
Whoopsie daisy.
But we didn't make the mistake of like, hey, let's sign up for a half Ironman 2 weeks out. Like we signed up 8 months out and we like got a professional triathlon coach. We started researching. My stepdad is practically like a semi-pro cyclist. He's helping write programming for running, biking, swimming. And that was honestly what really helped me build an aerobic base because this was right before I started CrossFit. So like the 6 months right before I started CrossFit, I was doing what I thought was like kind of a professional-ish triathlon like training plan for someone who's never done one for a half Ironman. So I'm like doing brick workouts, which just means is like the running, biking, swimming, the three of the movements, you're pairing two of them together.
Yep.
So like, for example, if I did a long ride, like for 50 miles or something on the bike, I would get off and do a run, whether it was a 5K. I would always try to do one with the other. So if I was swimming, I'd get off or out of the water, open water, and I'd go ride for however many miles. But that, I feel like that really, one, helped me be able to be a good swimmer because you don't swim in CrossFit unless you qualify for the games. So not a lot of CrossFitters do that. So I kind of felt like I had a huge advantage there. And then same thing with like cycling experience. Although last year, I got stitches on the bike, which we don't have to talk about that now. I just had to crack that joke. But like the cycling experience for anything like outdoors, like I have that.
Yes.
Which is extremely valuable. You know what I mean?
People don't even know.
And honestly, it really helped me when I moved to Mayhem because Rich in his fascination with mountain biking versus road biking, like I had a little bit of mountain biking experience and it made me want to like get good at that and be able to do these crazy workouts on the farm with Rich that, he's like, all right, well, let's do 2 laps around this mountain bike course right up to my dad's house, seniors, and do like 10 laps around the pond and back to the barn for time. Like if I didn't have that experience, I would look at him like he's cross-eyed and be like, you have fun with that. You know what I mean? Or it'd take me all day. But
well, and people underestimate is funny. I was giving Angelo a hard time I will forever thump my chest that I beat him in the first triathlon we did.
Yes.
It was a sprint.
Yeah.
But the bike ride, I think, was 20 miles, and it was a lot of not a lot of uphill, downhill, but a lot of like into a creek and out of a creek, and a lot of gear shifting.
Right.
And your technical capacity in that sense, and I see it at the games all the time too.
For sure.
If someone's never changed gears, you see it where you're like, this person could grind all day. I put them on a C2 bike, and they'd be like just crunching out calories, right? Mm-hmm. But then you ask them to understand how the gear mechanisms work and how you can use it to your advantage, et cetera. And like, it puts them at this, like, they're going to lose.
Oh, for sure.
So that does, I think, really, really.
Yeah. It's like cycling a barbell for the first time.
Yes.
Like someone's super rigid. They don't know how to be efficient. Because, like as you're coming up to a climb, like, the exact timing to shift up or down in a gear so that you can keep your momentum going up hills and then bomb it down the hills and everything.
Yeah, I came up behind him and I saw him just like spinning his feet,
and
I was like, yes.
That's the best.
I got you.
Yeah, that's so good.
Okay, cool. So you did the half iron.
Yeah, so ended up doing the half Ironman. It was really neat though. Like I did a few crazy things leading up to that I think helped build fitness and just had fun. Like for example, like I want to say a month and a half out from the half Ironman, my brother and I signed up for this race called Six Gap in North Georgia, which is a century ride. So it's a 100-mile bike race. This is road bike. And this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I think part of that was because, go figure, I came out hot. Yeah. I'm like, well,
this is one of your calling cards.
Sharing a bike kit. It was this group called ISI, which stood for Iron Sharpens Iron. And it's like all these like, there's like a Fortune 500 company owner. There's a couple doctors, like surgeons, like all these dudes that are like in their 50s and 60s that are extremely successful that love to get after it. And my brother and I just happened to be down the road in North Georgia. So we like joined them for different group rides for training as we're in this like phase of learning triathlons. Anyway, long story short, we do this ride with this group, like matching bike kits and stuff. And I'm trying to hang with this group, and they're all like have years and years, like decades of just aerobic capacity and bike building. And I'm like, 4 months to learning how to ride a road bike. But you're
like a wind sail.
Yeah.
Like these guys are probably like itty bitty with big old legs. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all like, Tour de France looking bodies. Right. Anyway. And I'm like keeping up with them for the first 45 minutes of this race. And to give you an idea of the race, I was on the bike saddle nonstop for 7.5 hours, which I know like Rich technically was for, I'm trying to think, he was sub 9 hours for the Leadville 100. So I was 7.5 hours. Granted, it's road bike, so it's a little faster. Yeah. We had a lot of elevation gain, and it was called Six Gap because there's like 6 mountains you go over. But anyway, by far the hardest thing I did because I blew my legs up like first 45 minutes of the race, and I'm holding on, trying to go as fast as I can. But yeah, like did that a month and a half out from the half Ironman, and then did a few other things. Like I got the trifecta medal in Spartan races just to train running, but it was really like, hey, we're doing a half Ironman. Let's try to like test ourselves over here. So we did the sprint Spartan race, which is like one part of the trifecta medal. Then we did like the super, and then we did the beast. So it's like the sprint's like 3 miles. I think it's 6 miles for the super, and it's a half marathon for the beast. And it adds 10 obstacles to each thing. And the beast, so the first 2 were like in North Carolina, and then the beast I actually did on in Breckenridge on a ski slope. Oh, dope. It was actually one of the coolest, like most beautiful things I've ever experienced.
Those events are really fun.
Those were a blast. But like, so I had some like interesting, odd, like weird but cool experience, honestly, for the games. Yeah. If you think about it, that's like games training. For sure. It's for sure CrossFit training from like an aerobic capacity standpoint. But it was a very unique thing to dip my toe in after baseball.
Well, yeah, and also the subtext of it is that you love a challenge and you love that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the DNA of someone who is drawn to CrossFit is also like, yeah, they look at that and they're like, oh yeah, let's do a mud run. Oh yeah, let's go try this half marathon, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that really helped me spark for sure a ton of aerobic capacity, because I just remember like doing like some of those tests and doing barbell cycling and them looking at me like, this dude will never make it in CrossFit. But like my first week I did like a echo bike, or no. It was assault bikes back then. So I did an assault bike test. It was like 10-minute max calorie. But because of all the cycling I did for triathlons and like that 6 gap race, I did like more than anybody in the gym, or like, I don't remember what it was, the numbers. It was like low 200s, or maybe like right under 220 calories in 10 minutes, something like that. Something that was like, they were like, oh shoot,
it raised eyebrows.
He's got potential,
Yeah.
you know, versus like when they saw me on a barbell, I've never snatched before.
Right.
I got like 135 and I'm struggling to power snatch and I'm like muscling it up barely.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, okay. Like this dude's going to struggle. You know what I mean?
So where is this happening? So I guess we moved to like your introduction to CrossFit. So
Oh man, we're going full Genesis story
Yeah.
here. I thought we were going to skip around quicker.
We'll skip around.
No, we're good.
But
No,
I
we're
want to
good.
hear how you got into it, and then we do have so much to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'll just try to be very short.
Okay.
Not get long winded here. So I started CrossFit at a local box in North Georgia, and it's called it was called CrossFit No Edge at the time, but now it's NWTF, which is North Forsyth Training and Fitness. And my boy Jesse Foster, who was like, he taught me everything pretty much. He was like trying to put me through the on ramp, and he's like, "Come in, I want to watch you do a few movements." And I told him, I was like, "Man, I'm a college baseball player. Like, I got this.
I know my thing.
Yeah."
Dude.
And he's like, "All right, I'll let you." He's like, "All right, you look athletic. Like, I'll let you jump in the class." And like, the dude, love this guy to death. Like, he's still a bro. I keep in touch with him today. But I just remember like thinking, so naive of me. Like, part of why I started CrossFit, like many other people, which we like to joke around about here, because now we're like, Rich is just a brother of ours. But like, I watched him on ESPN, and like, I had friends on my baseball teams telling me like, "Hey, you got to try this. Like, check this guy out."
Yeah.
And I look at Rich, like, who's this dude that looks like Leonidas with, you know, Galatians tattooed on the side, and
Yep.
you know, he's getting the crowd going anyway.
Just spoke to you.
Right. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to the games this year. Like, I got it in the tank, you know, totally naive. I go into the first group class, dude, I'm getting my butt kicked. It was some easy workout. At the time was daunting. It was like 30 double unders or something like that. Some low amount of double unders and 5 rounds for time with like box jumps and like running and like a barbell movement. And I remember I don't think I ever tried double unders, but I looked at people doing it, making it look easy. And I was like, oh, I got this. I tripped so many times. I think I got like 5 in like 3 minutes.
It's a rude awakening.
And then the guy looks at me, he's like, dude, you just start doing single unders. I know you don't want to scale. And like, he's like walking me to the whiteboard in the middle of the workout.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll start doing single unders. And I start trying to catch everyone, and like got smoked in my first class. First like few months. And like, no offense when I say like the label soccer moms, like I had these nurses and like some of these women that were like, and this isn't a bash on women, like,
no, it's just
these people were like people that worked out a handful, like maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, and they were spanking me. And I'm like, dude, I'm a college baseball athlete. What's happening?
Yeah.
And it's just like the learning curve, you know? And then the cool thing was my learning curve was fast. Like after a few months of that, I did a couple local comps. Next thing I know, the head coach, the owner that Jesse got to tell you about, like he was like, hey man, if you really want to take this thing seriously, because I started getting better a lot faster, he was like, man, like right up the road is Training Think Tank. And that was kind of when my CrossFit, like, I guess, journey shifted. So I walk in there, I'm having conversations with my brother, already talking about Mayhem. Like if I really think in the next 6 months to a year, like I'm gonna attack this thing seriously to be a pro, like I need to go up to Mayhem and try to have a conversation with Rich. I haven't even met Rich, don't nothing about Rich yet. And then I walk into Training Think Tank, and like it felt like I was walking in Mayhem. Like there's all these jerseys, medals, and this shrine down this hallway. It's Travis Mayer. It was really cool. I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I remember being with my brother, like, dang, look at those pictures. He won Granite Games. Like, dang, look at those CrossFit Games, like Coliseum photos. And I'm like walking in. Sure enough, there's a class going on. I'm like, all right. I look around the corner, and there's like, I think Noah Olson. I can't remember for a fact, but there's a couple dudes and a couple of girls that are like elite athletes that look like gladiators, like some of the most shredded aesthetic people in the sport. I think Lucas Parker was one of them, the like red-bearded Canadian at the time. And I'm like, yep, I'm in the right spot. Like those dudes look jacked. And then I remember seeing the first guy I saw in the front at the desk was Travis Mayer himself. And I didn't know what he looked like besides the pictures I just walked down the shrine and hallway with. And I'm like, hey man, he's like, hey, I'm Travis Mayer. Nice to meet you. And I'm like, time out, that hallway? Like those are your medals and stuff? And he's like, yeah, he's like joking. Never met him before. And I literally throw this at him. I'm like, hey man, I want to be in your shoes in a couple years. Like, how do I get there? And he looks and chuckles and laughs at me because I'm sure he's heard crazy people say like stuff like that before, like naive people.
But he's a great dude.
Like myself. Oh, dude, Travis is the man. I love that guy. He's also a bro. Anyway, so yeah, I like talked to him a little bit, and he pretty much was like, hey man, see around the corner, like that's Training Think Tank. This is like the local box. At the time it was called CrossFit Passion. Now it's United Performance. And anyway, he was like, this is the dynamic. This is the layout. If you want to try to train to go to the games, like these are the people you need to work with. And he introduced me to like Max Elhaj and like all the training think tank coaches. So anyway, let me speed up the story here.
And actually, I want to slow you down.
Okay.
Was it an option, or was it like, hey, you got to go kind of cut your teeth and show us what you got? Or it was like, hey, if you think you're in.
It was you're in. But I guess this is the thing too, and this is actually really funny, is because they only, at the time, they had still quite a few coaches. The like ones that come to my mind, I'm sure if I say this to people that are in the sport, they would know, like Mike McGoldrick, Brandon Dorman, like Adam Rogers. But the main guy was Max Elhaj.
Right,
There's like a list of coaches. And Max Elhaj at the time was charging the most and had all like the most competitive athletes. Like he coached Travis Mayer, Noah Olson. Like that was right when Noah Olson switched over to Training Think Tank and like was about to have his best finish. Anyway, so I say all to say, I walked in, I was like, oh, you coach Travis Mayer? I'm like talking to all the coaches. Like, oh, you're the guy that coaches Travis Mayer? All right. I'm ready. Like, when are you gonna start programming for me?
Put me in,
and
coach.
he's like, no, there's like a process. Like, I'm not taking athletes right now. And he ended up was pretty much like, I'm not gonna coach this guy.
Yeah.
Like, which I get it. Like, I'm just this dude who's like baseball guy who walks in. And he's like,
well, and like you said, probably heard it 100 times, right?
For sure.
Like, and we see it at Mayhem.
100%. And then they put me with a guy named Adam, who was like a great coach. His name's Adam Rogers. He coaches Lexus Raptors right now. Anyway, long story short, I trained there for 2 years. The beginning of the process was rough. I was terrible, and I got my butt kicked, ripped my hands once a week, just like any typical
noob
man or a woman that starts CrossFit. It's you get punched in the mouth. You know what I mean? And then I started to enjoy watching like Travis crush it and crush all these open workouts and all this stuff. And like his friends like Chandler Smith and Noah Olson would come visit, and I'd get to watch them. And it was cool to see like where it could go if you stuck with it.
And maybe more importantly, or as importantly, like they were also becoming your friends, right? Because there's so many things that happen outside the line, so to speak. Like the training is critical, but also like people, you included, you center your life around this, right? It's like, hey, what about rest? Hey, what about eating? Hey, what about like, you know, how do you blow off steam? Like, how do you keep your head right and all that stuff?
All the things. Well said. So then I CrossFit started getting more serious. I started seeing the potential. And then
Where are we right now? 2018?
So I started CrossFit, 2018 is when I did that half Ironman. And I started CrossFit shortly after that. So it was like I want to say the very end of 2018.
Okay.
I just know my first open was in 2019.
Got it.
And that was the first year they had 2 opens in one calendar year. So I did the 2019 open. And then this is funny. I actually didn't finish the 2019 open. It was like I did the first 2 workouts. And then the third one I couldn't do. I had to fly to LA to film for The Bachelorette season 15. And no, I don't want to talk about it. No, but it was an awesome experience as far as what came from it.
Yeah.
The experience was pretty rough. Yeah. I grew a lot as a man, grew a lot, matured a lot. And truly, you know what was really neat about the experience was I got to find out truly what I wanted in a woman to marry.
Oh, that's
because
cool.
I'm trying to like put myself in positions and conversations of like, okay, what do I really want to see in a future wife? Anyway, which is awesome because we're going to talk about Jennifer here soon.
100%. And actually, here's one that I've never asked you about, Bachelorette. Could you train during that time? Like, people don't know, like, do you have enough off time where you could actually be putting in, like, serious training?
Well, it's like anything in life, right? Like, there's always time.
Okay.
If you make time.
Yeah. I mean, I just didn't know. Maybe they're filming 12 hours a day. Maybe you're, you know.
Well, yeah.
You could organize your day to get a workout in.
For sure. I mean, I was like, I was doing stuff mainly in hotel rooms in the beginning. I got to find a few little fitness rooms and stuff, but
you figure that mansion, if they're listening, they should have just like a rogue setup.
No, the mansion was pretty
dream gym.
Was pretty booty, to be honest. That mansion setup, like we went in the back. There's like a little
booty.
Right? There's like a little driveway hill, and I was doing intervals. I was doing like jumping, split squats, burpees, and I'd sprint up a hill and come back, and I'd do like, 10 rounds and call it a day. And I'd go do push-ups and like a core circuit.
Just enough to keep
all body weight stuff. But like, like if you want to hurt yourself with body weight,
it hurts me more than anything else, if I'm being honest.
You can mess yourself up. So I just did a bunch of body weight stuff.
Okay,
Anyway,
so you'd be able to like kind of maintain, stay fit, whatever.
for sure. But I was still learning CrossFit. Like I was
Right.
still learning how to handstand walk. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
wasn't like. Anyway, so yeah, I was able to work out there
And that process of filming, how long were you there?
2 months.
Okay, 2 months. Okay,
It was actually really neat.
so not the longest. Like it's not like enough to lose out all your gains.
For sure. For sure. So I met like Noah Olson and some of these other friends of Travis and got to be around them enough to kind of, I would say like we're like good acquaintances.
Yeah.
And then when I got off the show, Travis was geeking out. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world because
I'm sure.
Oh, he doesn't watch any of that stuff. And I'm bringing like this like drama and publicity to Training Think Tank, and he's loving it. He's like, dude, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
We got you here. But then he also like had my back. Similar to Rich, when I came here, it was like, hey, like you don't know the real Luke.
Yes.
Like we have his back, and like he would stick up for me. So Travis was hilarious about that. And that was right when I got back home from filming, was like games training. They had like a Training Think Tank games training camp, and I like got to hang out with him. Like I said, Noah Olson and a few others that qualify, which was really neat. And then spectated my first games, and that was actually when I first met Rich.
Yeah.
I watched him win a gold medal with Dre, China and Tasia. I almost said Chasia. China and Tasia combined. Anyway.
That's actually a good celebrity couple name. I like it.
Right? Super cool watching them.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we know it's Rich. Like, there's a different presence when he walks on the floor. It was like Leonidas walking out there leading the troops in battle. And watch him secure that gold medal, cheer on Travis, cheer on Noah and some of the other Training Think Tank athletes. And then that was when I met Brian on the way home. Like, you know, it was a God thing, how I came to Mayhem, for sure.
Yeah.
At the same time,
We met that year, but I wasn't Mayhem yet, I don't think.
because
you're a fit aid, right?
we did hang out and talk a few times, actually. You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And you weren't even at Mayhem yet.
I think I was still freelance that year, and
So
we had a
interesting.
mutual friend in Aaron Hind.
Yep.
I remember
the Fit
meeting
Aid
you
guy.
specifically. I remember meeting you during, was it CT Fletcher was doing a
Yeah.
Fit Aid brought in, I think, CT Fletcher, and
Yep.
they were doing like a pump sesh, you know.
Yes.
And I actually felt bad because I'll be honest, when I got together with Angie,
Yeah.
she had watched every season of Bachelor or Bachelorette, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I had watched a few and then kind of fallen off. And so like I didn't know much about the show. And so anyways, I didn't have the context, but it was funny. And that's my one question. We can get back to like
There's so much to talk about.
we're gonna get back to where exactly.
we gotta hone in
know,
here.
I know. Well, I know from when you got to Mayhem, and I want to hear that story before we get to like family and important stuff. But
Honestly, I can give you the elevator pitch version, and I'll focus more on like my relationship with Brian, and then get into like Rich and stuff, because I was a fan of Rich in a way of not like fangirling Rich, but like I was so I respected him highly, and like thought his story was unique, because I think I was one of the guys that like was more into the details. Like I read his book, like his OG book, talking about like the rough season of life where he lost family members like his cousin, and like how he was experiencing things through firefighting, which we know and we respect Angelo. Like he's cutting, people out of cars.
Yeah.
Sometimes like dead bodies. Like if, you know what I mean? Like things that like we don't think about, but like he's, you know what I mean? He's seeing a lot.
Yes.
And it's like these first responders and these even nurses in the medical field, like they go through a lot.
And when you dig into this, and not to just be like, swinging from Rich's, but even the subtext like that you get in that book, where he had a very good chance of having a fantastic baseball career, right?
For sure.
And he walked away to be a firefighter, really to help the family out financially.
Yeah.
Which is just like another, okay, I like this dude.
Yeah, for sure.
So it resonates with you. You met Brian, and tell me about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you. So, oh man, keep me on track. So on the way, okay, let me refrain so people who are listening are kind of with us in the timeline. Leaving the 2019 games, watch Rich win a gold medal. My first time spectating the games. So as an athlete who just started CrossFit, just did my first open, I'm like, this is it. I want to be a gladiator out here in the Coliseum. You know what I mean? I want to train for this. I meet Rich. He's a phenomenal dude. Didn't realize how much of a just good old country boy, like American flag, gun-toting little like American guy that's like, dude, this dude is just a good old conservative boy who just doesn't care. He's out here just grinding, winning the games, and he's a good family man. And he just kind of nonchalantly invites me to come maybe visit the barn and train one day. I don't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
For probably a year. No, maybe like 8 months. I always wanted to, but it was a weird timing and everything, you know, getting off TV, navigating my own life and job because I'm trying to start a business. I don't know what to do. I can't just work out for a living. I don't have sponsors yet. You know what I mean? So a lot of things I'm navigating. So I start my own online business and all this. But anyway, to hone in on like the important story about Brian is I'm on the way home from the games flying and this dude sitting across from me in the aisle. I don't even know who he is, which is so funny to think about. It was Brian Nelson. It's so good. And I'm sitting next to this photographer and this lady was really cool. We had, I won't get too deep into the details there, but there was one of the photographers at the games, really nice lady sitting next to me. She's like editing photos and happens to come across a few of like China and Rich in a certain workout. And Brian's like, hey, let me see that. Like, I want to look at that. And like, is trying to like get the photos to maybe share. So then all of a sudden he's acting like he knows Rich and like is like his right hand man. I'm like, this guy don't know Rich. And then sure enough, I'm like, this guy knows Rich. And then we start talking about Rich and Mayhem and then start talking about mission work. And this is right before Mayhem Mission became a thing. So he's talking to me about how he wants to start this nonprofit called Mayhem Mission. And I'm like, I want to support this. Like the only reason I'm doing CrossFit right now is, well, yeah, I'm trying to find out what I'm doing for a living, but there's something about it. I feel like God's calling me to this community. I don't know what that looks like yet, but like, I know he's calling me to this. And he's talking to me about like his Togo mission and all the stuff he does in Africa and like how he's experienced Peru before, which now I'm in this chair talking about it. And like the last 3 years, I've been to Peru on a mission trip in CrossFit gyms in the Amazon jungle with Brian. He's been an awesome mission leader. Yeah. Like to know where I've been, like even when I first moved here and I lived under Haley Adams and like I was Brian's roommate my first year here, like to see where I've done and like to tell the Genesis story is actually really neat for me to kind of take a dive in the past.
And funny that it, you know, that's certainly no coincidence that you ended up in the seat next to him.
Oh, for sure. No coincidence.
Yeah. And just for listeners who have no context, Brian Nelson is a longtime friend of Rich, originally got together by way of being his financial advisor, but then became great friends,
100%.
Encouraged him to start Mayhem Mission, and now he's a big part, to say the least, he's a big part of Mayhem.
CFO of Mayhem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal. That's a big title.
100%.
Love you, Brian. If you listen, love you. and I think this is cool for listeners to get connections. He's like really close and longtime hunting friend and close friend with Bird, who is now head up of Mayhem Hunt. The listeners that are trying to connect dots here.
God, and if we want to keep on going, he's also the one who really encouraged us to bring on one Jennifer Fruitaker back in the day.
Yeah, Brian.
And that led to great things for you. So, dude.
Which is cool.
Brian's like the major chess piece in your life.
Yeah, Brian is a major chess piece in my life. So yeah, for listeners who don't know that, like Jennifer did meet Brian and go through an interviewing process literally 2 months before I moved to Mayhem. She moved to Mayhem to have a job here. And anyway, the rest is history. We can get into more details of that later, but it's amazing to see.
Do you know what her job interview was?
Was it skydiving?
Yeah.
It's so Mayhem.
We're doing like a team.
Time out. Wait a second.
We're doing like a team building.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that.
Dude, that was the first time we met her.
Well, think about this. You guys first meet Jennifer.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, most the people on staff are males. So you're like, I'm sure you guys were like, all right, well, let's test and put this female through some adversity to see if she's got thick skin to handle this job here at Mayhem. Think about my first week. I moved to Mayhem. Rich goes, hey, pack a duffel bag. We're going to Fort Bragg.
That's right.
Or Fort Benning. Fort Benning.
Yes.
And what do? What's the first thing I do? I skydive with the Golden Arch. The Golden Arch. Is it Golden Arches?
It is
Golden
the
Angels.
Golden Knights.
Golden Knights.
Yeah.
Sorry, Army. Golden Knights.
I
didn't think about that. We got thrown into the fire.
I would feel
out of an airplane, actually.
I would feel like you guys need to go. At some point, you got to go skydiving together.
That's a pretty cool story. Our first week at Mayhem. Our first experience at Mayhem. We went skydiving. Cool. I don't know. Sorry, guys.
And just to be clear, though, it was not as intentional of like, hey, let's put her through adversity, blah, blah, blah. I was like, hey, we're going to go skydiving for team building. And Brian was like, okay, you're going to meet this woman. And I think she'd be a great fit for Mayhem.
Yeah.
And she showed up and jumped out of a plane with us, which is awesome.
I think that's just really interesting.
That is really interesting.
So but that's cool. All right, let's hone it in. Sorry,
we're good, man. This is what a podcast is for. We jump around.
For sure. Absolutely.
We've actually kept it on the tracks way more than I thought we would, if I'm being honest.
I'm just glad we didn't dive down any bachelor holes. So yeah, where were we at? So I moved to Maine. Well, I guess I'm at Think Tank still. Get an invite to come, just to come visit.
Mm-hmm.
Come, me and Brian hang out because that's what happened. Here's a missing piece. Brian had a new nonprofit. It was the first driver to bring revenue to Mayhem Mission. That was 100% of the proceeds go to the Mayhem Mission. It was called Outside the Box first, but now we know it as Legends of the Falls. Yep. So it's in Brian's backyard, right in Alabama, and Gadsden, Alabama. And it's a OCR race, a couple CrossFit obstacles. And Rich and I actually, the first year they had it, Rich was on Darren's team with Darren's wife, and I brought my training Think Tank team. Like, it was one female athlete on our team and one of our male athletes, and we ran with them. And it was pretty much me and Rich running together in the woods, and then we'd stop and talk to each other, and we'd turn around and be like, why is our team so far behind?
Yeah.
And then he and I got to kind of connect. This is really funny. I'll share this, although I don't want to. I just think it's hilarious. I kind of gained, I guess, a respect from him as from a physical standpoint in that race, because he didn't know me from Joe. Just the fact that Hillary was like trying to talk me up because I was a shared my faith on the show, but I think he looked at me like, oh, this is just some dude from reality TV, like whatever. And then after this race, he has a whole line of like CrossFit fans to take pictures with him. And I got swarmed by a bunch of females that were like, I'm fresh off the show. They're like freaking out that I'm there, like trying to take pictures with me after I just grind with him in the woods. And I thought it was funny because after I felt like I had gained a little bit of respect and understanding from him, of not just some dude from TV. And then he came up to me nonchalantly and like gave me his number and was like, hey, if you need to come up to the barn and come hang out or come up for a workout. So this is the second invite I had because I had that invite from the games. And then I already had a personal relationship with Brian because I came there to help Brian with Mayhem Mission. So the next year, the next 2 years, I came to Legends of the Falls to help be a judge and help out with everything, to like connect the dots, which is funny because that next year when I came to help judge Legends of the Falls, I met Jennifer for the first time.
Okay.
She was helping. So we helped together. And then that shortly after, in between that timeline, I might be screwing up this timeline a little bit. I did work out with Rich at the barn with Brian for a weekend. And then I made my decision like a few months later. And this is right when Jennifer's moving there and got the job after skydiving. Excuse me. It wasn't like, hey, come be a Mayhem athlete. It was like, hey, I like what you represent, and I like that you want to help Mayhem Mission, and I like that you want to like test your body physically and see if you can be a games athlete. Like, if you want to come, you're more than welcome to come.
And by the way, like, because I'll give you my input on that side, on that time period too. It was like, Rich, if somebody can hang with him and not like beat him in workouts, but I mean like not afraid to keep showing up.
For sure.
That's what he needs, right? Like he surrounds himself with people because he's always doing something crazy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also that's the bigger test too, is like you showed up and this is how I remember it. It was like you were just killing yourself, right?
Oh, killing myself.
But you kept showing up.
Yeah.
You kept showing up. And we'll give Brian another shout out. When I had the conversation to become part of Mayhem, Brian was like, look, I do not need another training partner for Rich. And I was like, don't worry, I'm not that guy. Like don't have the same goals.
So
like
good.
Don't have that much time in the day anyways. And he was all right, good, because what happens is like, people come here and they'll be like, oh, I'm just going to train with Rich all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, you got a job. Yeah. So anyways, to have someone like you who was down, had the same goals, and he enjoyed being around.
Yeah.
It was a perfect timing.
The timing was so perfect.
The timing was great, right?
It was very unique.
Yeah.
It was interesting too from like a logistics standpoint as far as like athletes around here. Because sure, he had guys like you.
Yeah.
Or even Jake Locker, like the, programming director, or some of his buddies from high school even that would work out with him. But from an actual Mayhem athlete standpoint, like Scott Panchik just had to leave. They just announced affiliates again.
Yeah.
Affiliate Cup. So like there was no super
He didn't
teams.
have a lot of people to throw down with.
Well, what's unique about it, I have to bring it up because I think it's funny, because I like when Rich talks about it because it's hilarious, is he had Haley Adams, Ellie, China. She was about to leave, but she was there at the time. Tasia. There was another female. Who was it? Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is it was pretty much Rich on a daily basis, training with like
a female dominated environment.
5 women.
Yeah.
And he's like, Rich.
He's a dude.
He's like, where my dudes at?
Yeah.
And I just happened to show up. And I think he was like, yeah, I need this right now. That's
what I'm trying to say.
I need to mix up the ratio right now. And the timing was the perfect storm, like you're saying too, because I wasn't a threat to Rich at all. If anything, he was trying to help teach me the ropes. And I was in a process of my life when I first moved to Mayhem where I told myself about 6 months, I'm not going to let myself be here more than 6 months pursuing being an athlete if I don't think I have what it takes.
Yeah.
And I never had that conversation with Rich, like, hey man, do you think I'll ever be able to make it to the games? But I noticed that when I showed up, I didn't really belong there. As far as like, I didn't belong on a competition floor, you know what I mean? To compete with people. After 4 months of training at the barn, which I know we joke around about it like it's dog years, like one normal CrossFit year in the barn is like 7 years of experience. But it was almost like that. Like I went from being, I don't belong on a like semifinal floor, so I qualified for semis within 4 months of moving there, and I was not that kind of athlete moving there. And I knew, I was like, okay, the timing of everything and all I've experienced in these quick first 4 months moving to Mayhem, like this is bigger than me. Like I'm not doing CrossFit to make money. Like from my reality TV connections, I had a lot of different ways I could try to make money and start different things as far as business stuff goes. But I was like, this is where God's calling me. Yeah. And this is my new home. This is where I belong. And I was just super thankful and appreciative. Not just Rich, but Rich is for sure the driver of it. But Rich, Brian, and Mayhem family, like you and your family, there's so many families and people that
Hillary was hugely invested in you, like
100%. That kind of tucked me under their wing and was just kind of like, hey, like your family here, because I was still battling all the hate online from all the like Bachelor Nation and all the stuff there, and it was like it wasn't that I was trying to find who I was, but I was still trying to find like what to do for a living. Yeah, you know, and I was just trying to live out my faith. And honestly, at the end of the day, I was just trying to do my best in everything I did and just grow. Yeah. And that was a huge growing process.
Well, and I promise we're not going to get into Bachelor talk because you're happy we breezed over it. But I think that you were having some identity stuff because people were saying bad things about you, you know? And I remember we talked about it specifically, and it's like, look, I want to be taken seriously as an athlete. And what was really some of the stuff that struck me, but one in particular was you had, you know, things that lots of people just clamor for, lots of attention and lots of followers on Instagram and stuff. And you're like, I can't wait till these ones are gone. Not that you were like, I don't like these people or whatever, but like in an audience way, you were like, some of these people don't care about me. They don't care about what I'm about. They don't care about the message that I'm speaking. For sure. I'm trying to show them who I actually am. Yeah. And you've done a tremendous job with it. But at that point in time, you were having a struggle, right?
I mean, we could dive into what I learned and struggled like back then, but I'll just kind of steer it this direction for a second, and then you help guide me. Because I knew who I was. Definitely wrestled with God a little bit through that TV experience. Like, why me? Why this? Why that? And then quickly I realized all that the experience was going to turn into, all the doors that would be opened, and how much I would grow as a man. And it's like anything, right? Like you have to be refined by the fire first. You have to go through the adversity first. And that's what creates the character. And then that's what creates the endurance, right? And it's literally all there in Scripture. And let me change the direction real quick. After all of that experience, you know what made me really happy from as far as like my audience, and if we're talking about social media audience standpoint, was I started getting recognized after my first few years at Mayhem for being a Mayhem athlete.
That's what I'm saying.
And it was like, that felt so good to me. And it wasn't just, oh, I'm on Rich's YouTube channel. Yeah. It wasn't just that. It was like, Rich turned me into a games athlete. Granted, it was my hard work and like God's timing and in his power and plan. But like, I went to the games on a team with Rich. My first year qualifying was my second year here. And I got to come in 5th place. Granted, I was salty. I wanted to stay on the podium with Rich because, you know, he's my boy. But Angelo and I got to come in 5th, which was an amazing experience. And I got to see people, and they're like, you're on the Mayhem YouTube. And I was like, you know me for something different than The Bachelor. And it was like, man, that really was a neat turning point in my life to be, I guess, recognized for something aside from that TV experience. But I'll back up to the TV experience real quick. I did enjoy people meeting me because they were like, oh, here's this Luke B guy, 5'8" villain is what they would call me, and all these lists of things. And I enjoyed people coming up to me and talking to me because they didn't know who I was. They didn't know what to expect. And I was like, hey, like, you get to meet the real me in the moment, because that's all I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
Is meet these people if they recognize me, just to show them the real me.
Yeah.
Because if you meet me in real life, there's no edited version of me. This is it.
Yes.
Whatever I say, how I act, this is me.
Yep.
And I love those opportunities because I just wanted people to get the real. And I was super thankful to be able to go through that process where, I started getting recognized for other things versus just TV, because I don't want to be known as that guy, right? And even CrossFit, I don't want to just be known as CrossFit. There's a lot more I want to be known for in my life. Yeah. But I was just super thankful for that turning point, if you will.
I love it. And actually, let's talk about that. Like, what do you want it to be? People choose to say a lot of things in their biography, but yours is now, I'm gonna blow it. Truth over fame, or what is it? Faith over fame.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's faithful over famous.
Faithful over famous.
Yeah. What
does that mean?
I love that you asked me that. No one asked me that. It's pretty simple. I'm not here to be famous. I'm not trying to pursue fame in any way. I'm just trying to pursue being faithful to God, what he's called me to do and how he's called me to live, which is right, God's design, and it's all there in Scripture in the Bible. So live according to biblical truth. And it's this simple. I want him to be famous, and me being faithful and talking about God and Jesus and what he's done for me in my life and for mankind. Like, I want him to be famous. That's all I want, is Jesus to be famous. I like to look at it like a old Lecrae lyric is, I'm just a trail of stardust leading to the superstar.
Nice.
And that's it. Like, I'm not the superstar.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like, if me being famous and me trying to be a superstar in whatever avenue of life I'm taking, I want that so that I can use that to point it to him. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be all for me, because it's not for me. That's not why I'm here.
Yeah. And actually bringing those two concepts together. Another great story I loved is, I don't know if it's still an aspiration, but you want to do inspirational, or you wanted at one point to do motivational speaking, which I think you'd be tremendous at.
Still do.
Okay. Well, you told me a story about, whatever the proximity was to The Bachelorette, mm-hmm. The fans were young girls or whatever, fans of the show, right?
Right.
But you would take these speaking gigs and a bunch of sorority girls would show up.
Yes.
But you would take the opportunity to basically promote your faith and talk about things that, like, just basically as a curvevball for them.
For sure.
But it's exactly what you're talking about. You're like, hey, okay, I got this platform. Boom. Here's how I'm going to use it.
Yeah. I'll throw out one example for listeners so they can understand what you're talking about, Rory. So one of the coolest experiences was so I have one sibling, my older brother, through my sister-in-law, so my brother's wife, her dad, big close friend and mentor of mine. We call him Bucky. So anyway, through one of his friends who became a good friend of mine, was an outside linebacker for the University of Georgia.
Oh, wow.
I'm fresh off TV. For sure, all sororities watch The Bachelor.
Right.
They
got bachelorette night.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
They got batch nights, drink wine together, study, all the things. Anyway, to speed up the story, I went to UGA's campus right before first semester started, literally the week of. I didn't know it was like freshman, not initiation. What do you call it? Freshman.
I know
it's like freshman week. Like freshmen come in to like get acclimated to everything. Yep. Anyway, so I get there and I go on my Instagram story, and this guy's like pretty like well known on campus. I think he's a sophomore at the time, an outside linebacker, and like he and I do a selfie video together. Like, hey, anybody at UGA on campus, like, come to this auditorium. And I plan on doing a small group and sharing my experiences on TV with 5 football players. Rory, 200 freshman girls show up.
Yes.
200.
Yes.
From one Instagram selfie video. It was the neatest thing. It went from like just me talking to these guys to me and my I almost call my stepdad, but it's my brother's stepdad. Excuse me, not stepdad, father-in-law. My brother's father-in-law. I'm mixing this up. My brother's wife's dad Bucky.
Yeah.
He's with me, like you and I are sitting right here, but imagine if we had 200 girls and 5 football players in UGA, and we're doing like a panel Q&A type thing. So he's asking me questions like, hey, share this about that, what you learned from this part of the show and all that. At the end, I share my faith and share the gospel. He does a gospel presentation. I don't remember the exact number, but it was more than like 5. Even if it's 1, that's all that matters. Girls came to Jesus. But the coolest thing to me was a lot of these girls that were faith girls or even weren't were like, hey, I'm a freshman. Oh, you have that class? I have that class too. And there's freshmen who are not scared, but like, you're the small fish in the pond now. Yeah. Like you're on a new campus and it's like kind of intimidating as a freshman going to a big university like University of Georgia. And to see these freshman girls like connecting, intermingling and like connecting with each other and getting each other's numbers so that they can like, you know, have confidence to have friends on campus for their first freshman year at UGA was amazing. And to see people come to know Jesus and to accept God as their Lord and Savior was like, dude, it was one of the most beautiful experiences for me because I literally thought I was just going to talk to 5 football players. Yep. And like, just like that.
That's the story I was hoping you would tell.
The whole night changed. Yeah. And I went and did, Ben came with me, Ben Davidson. This was like the first year I moved to Mayhem. I went and did a little thing like that at Tech. And I've done a few of those where I went like kind of touring to different sororities. I didn't do a whole lot of, I did a handful of different sororities, different places I went and did like boot camp style workouts. Where it was like, hey, I'm going to put you through a quick little like 5 to 10 minute Metcon body weight. And I'm just going to share my story and what I learned from the Bachelor. And of course, these sorority girls wanted to hear it. They wanted to like do a workout and I got to share my faith. And like that was a cool experience that came from that as well, that I got to kind of take the reins on.
It's like a perfect example of using that platform
for sure
in the way that you want to. We'll love that. And I love the heart of that, you know, faithful over famous.
Faithful over famous.
And I guess one thing I can't not talk about, we're gonna talk about this, then we're gonna talk about family, and then we'll see if we wrap it there or not.
Can I cut you off real quick?
Yeah, please. Always.
You asked me before you got into Faithful or Famous, like, what do I want to be known for?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good maybe finisher or outro.
I still no, we can't finish yet. I'm sorry. I got 2 more. I want to talk about Israel and I want to talk about your family. So
for sure have to
but tell me, but let's talk about legacy and what you want to be.
Well, I mean, for sure I want to be known for like the guy that goes full send. You know?
Yes.
I always want to be known as that guy. But most of all, like what I do, not just what I want to be known for, but like why I'm even doing what I'm doing is I want to inspire people. It's all about the people.
Yep.
I want to inspire people to be the best version of themselves, which is why Mayhem Athlete exists, right? We want them to do that through a healthy lifestyle, whether it's nutrition, you know, fitness, functional fitness, CrossFit, all the things. And then there's one more point, which is the main driver and the more serious point for me in my life, is I want to inspire people to get to know their creator. I want people to truly know God and know Jesus, like to have a personal relationship with him, because I've had a very unique life. And yeah, I used to struggle questioning God and my faith until I got to truly experience God in a supernatural way. And that's all I want for people. Because once people get to experience God, it's like I can look at you in the eye now through my life of experiences, and I know you could do the same, and tell you I know God is real. Mm-hmm. And I just want people to experience him, because having a relationship with him, like that's why we're here, to love God and love people. And that's why we're here, and that's what I want for everybody. Yeah. And then pair that with, I want to inspire people to be the best version of themselves and to know that they can literally do anything.
And I mean, maybe just to kind of back it up, because sometimes that sounds like so highfalutin, you know, or it's like, oh yeah, of course you want me to be like the best version of myself, but like you weren't always perfect, right? I mean, it's basically like, still not perfect. That's what I like, is that you bring the real too, where you're like, I think the reason you are that way is because you, like you said, you've been through all these tribulations, you've been through a lot of life experiences where you're come to that outcome where you can also be like, nah, man, I'm not trying to be like higher than you or like whatever. I'm trying to tell you that I'm just a real dude, and this is what's worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I like where you went with that, because I think some people do get it a little mixed up, because to be a Christian doesn't mean, oh, I'm good. Yep. It means I know the one that is good. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a fellow beggar. Like we're all beggars here looking for food, and we don't know where the food is, the source of food or the source of life. And it's like, hey, I'm a fellow beggar, and I'm just pointing to you where the bread is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Jesus. Like, I just want everybody to have that relationship. But like you said, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I know the one who is perfect.
Love it. Why Israel? Where'd that come from?
All right, let's dive into it. So, Doug is where it came from, but really God. So, I've always wanted to go to Israel my entire life. Timing has never worked out for me and things in my life, but also I didn't ever really know, I guess on a deep level, I never really knew that I needed to go to Israel. And then randomly, a week before quarterfinals, week and a half, I guess, before quarterfinals, one of my good buddies hits me up, who's a faith guy, and says, hey man, like I have a couple Jewish friends. One of them owns a production company. Anyway, aside from the details, we have a free trip for you, which is very expensive to go to Israel. He was like, we'll only be there 3 days, but we're going to see. He gave me the itinerary of all these things we'd be able to do. Like one example, Valley of Elah, like where David slayed Goliath, like one of those most manly man stories in the Bible. Like Sea of Galilee, where Jesus walked on water and calmed the seas. Like Jerusalem, like what's known as the Holy City, right? Where like Jesus was crucified and resurrected. So like things that are like very significant to the Bible and bringing the Bible to life. And it's free. And I'm like, hold up. This timing is terrible. Like I got quarterfinals. I know how the video submission things go. I'm like, this is nerve-wracking.
Not to mention world events, bro.
Yeah, world events and the fact that Israel was, well, technically since the beginning of Israel as a nation, it's always been at war from all the surrounding countries. But there's a lot of things that we see, especially in the U.S. on the news, like they're at war. And it looks like it's with Palestine, but the real war is not Palestine. There's just a lot of terrorist groups that are from Iran that are controlling certain areas, and it's just a whole mess. That's really what.
And it happens to be particularly. You're right. Like it's a long and very complicated history, but right now in particular is like a dangerous time to go
for sure
to Israel.
Completely dangerous time.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, honestly, I think it's interesting because people look. Well, the news is rough, but like Palestine, for example, they say, oh, like if you post a picture of Israel and like the land, they're like, oh no, that's not a picture of Israel, that's a picture of Palestine, which is interesting because it's literally biblical prophecy coming to life. It's been going on forever. Like if you go back to the beginning and like how people are trying to overtake Israel and God's nation of God's people through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like it's all there. It's literally all happening. That's why Israel's always been in war for like its entirety as a nation forever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, to get out of that, back to why I'm going, right? I had this amazing opportunity just revealed in front of me, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, I've been praying personally in my life, like, God, help me grow in my discipline and my faith, you know? Because like I said, I'm not perfect. My faith isn't perfect. And I felt like God was, and he could have done it through anything. He could have done it through a workout, through a conversation with you. But instead, it was his plan. Here's an opportunity to go to Israel. Learn more about me and experience me more. A week before quarterfinals. Because I know your human flesh wants to be nervous about that. Because at first I was like, I can't go.
Yeah.
Then I told my buddy, I was like, let me pray about it. Anyway, long story short, I prayed about it, and I felt like God was trying to grow me in my faith, like I prayed and asked him to. And it was through that opportunity. And you know what? One quick testimony.
Take your time, by the way.
Yeah. One quick testimony that like gave me this peace about going, and with quarterfinals being so close, is when I got there, which the guys that took care of us, it was really nice. Like we stayed in a nice hotel, like where we had breakfast. We could see like the Holy City, the walls and everything, like 2,000 years.
It was a 5-star experience.
It was a 5-star experience. But like in the hotel room, which is very interesting, my what do we call Mayhem performance programming?
Yeah.
So individualized programming. My coach, Mike McElroy, programmed me 2 movements if I had an opportunity to go to a CrossFit gym, or two workouts that had 2 pieces of equipment. One was a stair climber, and one was just a rogue box, like a typical rogue box, right? 30 inches was tall, 24 normal, 20 for women if you make it on the shorter side. the exact dimension of a Rogue box, some knockoff brand, and a stair stepper was in the weight room, the fitness room at the hotel. Have you ever been to a hotel that has those two pieces of equipment? I haven't.
Right, zero chance.
Ever in my life. And I always go to the fitness room every hotel I've ever gone to. And I've been to a lot of hotels. Those are in there. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to be all right.
Yep.
Like, I can make do with these dumbbells. And I brought my jump rope. And I'm like, I have a stair stepper and a Rogue Dimension box. I'm like, I can hurt myself with these contraptions.
Yes, dude.
And it was like, that gave me peace to know, like, he had me right where he wanted me. And I could dive into some crazy stories about like what I got to see.
Man, I'm sure. We'll save that for a more in-depth.
We will,
because I don't want to brush over that kind of stuff. But suffice it to say,
for sure,
life-changing experience.
Life-changing, and it really was just like, because you hear all the things, like, oh, you know, it brings about a life and it's surreal, and it's like until you go, you know that all those things are true, like what people say about Israel, and it was just truly amazing. So, yeah.
Were there like media outcomes? Can people go somewhere and see? Like, I know your Instagram, you put up a lot of like recaps and photos and stuff.
So there's a new, like, our Jewish friend who just started this new page. There's not a whole lot of followers or content on it now, but they have a bunch of banked content that they're going to start pushing on this page. It's Holy Landings if you search that on Instagram. But there's going to be a few really good avenues of places to go soon to see some of that content and like videos of like the stuff that we got to do specifically. But yeah, if you just...
So you'll push that out whenever it's ready?
When it's ready, I'll start pushing that out.
Okay.
But that's going to take some time.
I can't believe... Well, maybe it's appropriate that we save this for last, but like you came here as a lone wolf, young single man, and in the past very short amount of time... You are now married?
Yes.
And got a baby on the way.
I have a baby on the way.
Let's talk about the love story real quick. Because it's funny, we started to spell it out when you met Jennifer.
We brushed over it. Sorry,
we met Jennifer, but how did the romance advance?
Okay, so...
And for those who don't know, Jen, after she jumped out of an airplane, she was thrown into the fire. Where it was like, hey, we don't know what your job is. We got a bunch of stuff that needs to get done. We need you to help out with social media. We need you to help with copywriting. We need you to help with organization, by the way. Like she was a massive external brain for me for a long time. She has organizational skills that I just, I couldn't even clean my own room.
She's very good at that.
And anyhow, so you guys basically meet at Legends of the Falls, and then obviously you're in close contact because she's doing media. You're a Mayhem athlete. But when did the sparks fly?
So I meet her first at Legends of the Falls. We were both serving together at this Man Mission event. I stay with Brian. She stays with a bunch of the people on the mission board. So we stay the night in Gaston after the event. We go, so Brian invites her to come with Brian and I to Church of the Highlands. So we just go to church in the morning, Sunday morning. And I couldn't help to recognize like how she handled the service and everything. Just like simple things, like the way she worshiped, like how she handled everything, the conversations, the language, the words, everything. And it wasn't like love at first sight or anything, so don't take it that way. I just noticed, okay, she's real about her faith is where I was getting at. So then Brian's like, oh, I got to run to this financial meeting with some friends real quick. This is Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I got to leave you guys. I wanted to take y'all to lunch or Cracker Barrel or something, but I got to go. So I'm like, well, hey, do you want to go to Cracker Barrel? So we go to Cracker Barrel. And of course, it's Sunday morning. You can't get into Cracker Barrel. Like there's a huge line.
Yeah.
Hour wait, right? So we get there and I'm like, well, there's a like Mexican restaurant next door. Let's go there. So we go get Mexican food, chips, guac, fajitas. And I talked to her about my life story because she's still looking at me like with kind of an eyebrow like this. Like,
yep.
You're from TV. Like, ugh. But I want to hear your story. And then she's like, oh, okay. Like you're kind of cool. But it's still like, you know what I mean? There's a little there. So then 2 months later, or no, this was quite a few months later. But anyway, long story short, within a few months, we both moved to Mayhem. For the first year at Mayhem, we were friends. I'm going to the same church as her with Brian, and we're inviting other people, doing events with you and the crew, whether it's like Army stuff, having camps, but like nonprofit events, different partnerships. I'm always there with her a lot, but we're friends. Like super professional, seriously, zero intention of dating her.
Yeah.
Speed the story up. About a year and a half of being at Mayhem, I was like, you know what? Gotten to know this girl. I've been like, of course, I'm a dude with testosterone flowing through his body. Like, meeting my future wife is on my mind.
She checks a lot of boxes. She checks all the boxes.
Right.
And I'm really attracted to
That
her.
was
Yeah.
it. I'm praying about like all those things. I'm reading Proverbs 31, wife of noble character, and I'm like, she checks his boxes. I'm like, and I'm battling these thoughts of, do I even take her on a date? She works for Mayhem. I kind of technically work for Mayhem. This is weird if I date her and like we break up. So I tell her, I'm like, hey, look, I'm into you. I don't know what that means as far as like us not being professional about our relationship. I don't want to lose our friendship, but I want to take you on a date. And she looked at me and she goes, about time.
Nice.
And then I took her to dinner a ton, honestly, as friends too, with other friends. And then, started dating for several months. We actually did break up there for a few months and battling some things as far as like, is she the one for me? And then how much time do I have here?
As much as you need.
I almost want to share a quick testimony because
Please.
this is a pretty wild story. So anyway, I felt like that quick few month breakup was like perfect for me to see that this is what God wants for me. And then interestingly enough, when we start dating again, after that little hiccup of dating, I'm in this weird like season of life where, no, let me back up. So that's what it is. So I have a friend who's trying to challenge me. He's like, he grew up Pentecostal. He's like, got an interesting experience as far as like his relationship with God. And he came on this mission trip with me, with Brian the past year to Peru. Anyway, he was challenging me. He's like, hey man, like, has God ever spoken to you in your dreams? And I'm like, no. I mean, I've like had like a dream of something and then months later it happens before, but I've never like had a vision or anything or heard an audible voice of anything. He's like, well, dude, I want to challenge you to pray and ask God to speak to you in your dreams. And I looked at him, I'm like, bro, this isn't the Old Testament. Like, I believe God can do anything, but like, come on, dude, let's be real.
Yeah, the bushes aren't catching on fire.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And he's like, just trust me. Like, I want to challenge you. And I'm like, all right, I'll ask God, like, hey, if it's in your will, like, will you speak to me in my dreams? At the same time, I'm praying kind of separately, like, God, please, like, if you're going to speak to me in an audible voice, may it be now about Jennifer, because I selfishly want to marry her. Like, is this the woman you have for me? Please give me a clear answer. And I'm praying these both things kind of separately. And then for a couple weeks, I'm praying these like relentlessly. And then I'm actually at Jennifer's house, helping her cook dinner. We're just kind of hanging out. We're seriously dating at the time. And I'm praying these things, like asking God, is she the one for me? And she goes, hey, the craziest thing happened. Like, I had a friend from high school send me a Facebook message saying that she had a dream that you proposed to me. And I'm like, interesting. Still don't think anything about it.
Yeah.
And then literally a week later, same scenario. I'm in her kitchen again a week later, cooking dinner with her, I don't know, meal prep or something. And she goes, hey, the craziest thing, one of my old friends that I haven't talked to in like a year, who's like extremely strong in her faith, who has the gift of prophecy, is like telling me she had a dream that you proposed to me. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Still don't think anything of it. The next day, she has a friend that I've met and hung out with. So these are like people I know now. She goes, my best friend, Sarah Kate, had a dream the next day. This is the third person in a row. These three girls don't know each other. She goes, my best friend, Sarah Kate, said she had a dream that you proposed to me. And then it hit me. I don't tell Jennifer, of course. But I was like, time out. That's 2 answered prayers in one. Like, literally, if I told you that God spoke to me in my dream, you'd look at me like I'm cuckoo. Like, okay, here's this hippie telling me like God's speaking to him in his dream. But like, you'd have to believe me and my testimony.
Yeah.
But if I told you I prayed something and I have 3 witnesses of 3 different people that don't know each other that had the same dream, and I was praying, asking God to speak to me in my dreams, or if it was his will to do something through dreams. And then there's 3 people that said that I proposed to Jennifer in their dream, and I'm also praying, God, is she the one for me? I was like, dude, that's 2 answered prayers in one. Boom. I was like, thank you, God. I'm going to propose to her. And then I literally, like, the next day picked out a ring, like grinding online, just looking at different patterns and stuff. And then sure enough, the rest is history. I proposed, quickly got married 2 months later because we didn't want to elope and like hide it from our families, but we knew what we wanted. We're like, I'm not going to spend money on a wedding. I'm not going to spend $100,000 for throwing a party for my friends. So we got married in Chattanooga and locked it up. It was during the Open. I proposed like literally right before New Year's. Got married during the Open. It's like the second week of the Open, 2023. And now we are 23 weeks pregnant. She is. We are. I'm not pregnant.
We are. Yeah.
We are.
That's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's doing the heavy lifting, but
exactly.
You're part of it.
So yeah, it's been a 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, dude. And really, I feel really close to Jen, and she basically said like it wasn't necessarily the original plan, right? Like kids weren't a foregone conclusion when you guys got married.
I mean,
for you it was.
I knew that so I'm spilling the beans here on Jennifer. I love you, honey. So when we started dating, she was 36 years old. And I don't know all the like ins and outs of babies as far as like when women can have kids. And then there starts being like,
there's a large strike zone, but it probably gets more complicated the older you get.
There's complications when you're in your 40s sometimes of like, hey, some things may go wrong as far as like all the things right there, right? So I knew, I was like, well, we have a short window there, and I want you to be the youngest mom you can be. So when we never had these conversations a whole lot. I was kind of like, hey, God's timing will work out, whatever. And then when we got married, she was like, well, when do you want to maybe start having kids? And I was like, I thought we already started. And then she's like, no.
How about yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, I mean, I'm not there yet. And then I respected that. And I was like, all right, well, like, okay, well, let's take some time and figure it out. And then quickly, we like made up our minds to
love it.
Let's start it.
And where's your head at with, I mean, this baby is due the games week, right?
Yeah. Well, so spoiler alert. I almost just dropped a bad joke. I'm going to save it. Anyway, we don't know the gender. I was about to act like I knew the gender and like mess with you guys. But anyway, Jennifer's always wanted to wait to the day of delivery to find out if it's a boy or girl. And of course I'm going to support whatever she wants.
Sure.
Right. So like, that's what we're doing. And
it's a boy. I'll just let you know right now.
It's interesting. I'm trying to find out a good name for a boy and a good name for a girl. And I've been down all the rabbit holes for boys' names.
Yeah. And
I finally have a few names where I'm like, I really like this name.
Yeah.
And I haven't even started thinking really any for the girls. So I'm like, I need to start doing that.
You do.
Because I don't want a girl to show up and I'm like, okay.
Just be prepared.
I'm not prepared. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'll be prepared. I'm going to be happy either way. So.
Oh, yeah, dude. And you'd be a tremendous father.
Thank you.
But timing wise, like, does it make you nervous? Like what are the logistics behind this? Because I'm not joking. It's literally the week of the games, right?
Okay. Oh, I forgot about that. This is very interesting that we're having
this episode. Is Josh tapping his foot yet? Are we good?
Hey.
Yeah. Okay.
This is going to be really interesting because she's due the last day. I believe like it could be off by a day, but I think it's August 29th.
Yep.
And it's not uncommon to have a baby a week or 2 weeks early. It's actually common.
100%.
So 2 weeks early would be in Texas at Dickey's Arena at the CrossFit Games where she has our child.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot right there,
Yes.
So we're going to have a plan B to have the child in Texas.
Really?
If she shows up.
Okay.
She thinks for sure I'm going to be at the games, but I'm like, we don't really know how she's going to feel, all the things. And then we're going to have a contingency plan to have somebody probably on the plane with us that like is qualified to birth a baby. Which by the way,
I want to match your flights.
I didn't know
just
this.
In case.
Check this out.
I want to be there for the birth on the plane.
Check this out. Huh. So Jeff, right, at the gym. So Melanie's husband. So my buddy Justin Garcia.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know Jeff.
Yeah, father-in-law. Firefighting, EMT, all the experience. I didn't know he's helped birth like 50 women.
I didn't either, but that does not surprise me.
Check this out.
He's just a gangster.
Right? So Justin's wife Katie, she was like pretty much due and flew from like California to Tennessee. I believe so. Anyway, and he was with her just in case she had on the plane. I'm like, hey man, I might need you to come to the games for me and my wife. Just kind of like hang out my wife's back pocket.
Jeff is going to add midwife to his resume.
Yeah, Jeff's the man.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, honestly, I'm going to pay for his flight to
Yeah.
the games. Like, please, I need you in my wife's hip pocket. Like, just in case.
What do you need me to do? You know, controlled burn, cut down some trees for
Seriously.
you, birth your child. No big deal.
Really.
Jeff can do it all.
So I thought that was a funny story.
It is, man.
Interesting.
It's gonna change your life, and it's gonna be for the better. But can't wait to see you as a dad.
Fired up.
I love you very much, man. You're just such a tremendous, like, positive influence on. I love what this community's got to meet you and see you over the years and stuff. And this is great that we get to like slice the onion and get a little bit deeper, because I don't think we always get to show that side of you.
Absolutely.
And because we can't cover it all in one show, like, you're gonna have to come back.
Yeah. Well, I love you too, and I can't wait to talk to you more.
Thank you, bro.
Love you, bro.